Let's turn this to this. Hi guys! If you're new here, I'm Maxi, a rubber duck VTuber. In this video, I'll talk about some of the more advanced features of Figma. Figma is a tool for web designers, but I also use it to design VTuber assets. If you haven't yet, check out my Figma Basics video, especially if it's your first time hearing about it.
Quack quack.
In the last video, we ended up with this for our streaming schedule. But it looks a little plain and I kinda wanna add a bit more character to the rectangles. But the default shape options don't really fit what I'm looking for. There's a few features here in the toolbar that will allow us to customize shapes to our liking. First are Boolean groups. You can apply Boolean groups on different shapes by clicking on this button in the middle of the toolbar. You can do union, which will join the shapes. You can do subtraction, which will subtract the top shape from the bottom shape. Intersection will get the intersection of the two shapes. And exclude will exclude the intersection of the shapes. You can view what shapes you have in the Boolean group by clicking on the drop-down button in the Layers panel. You can even drag new shapes into the Boolean group. Remember that the order of the shapes is important when you're setting up these Boolean groups. So for example, I have a subtract Boolean group. The rectangle right now is at the top. If I move it to the bottom of the ellipse, then it changes. You'll notice another option here among the Boolean groups is called flatten selection. What this does is it compresses all your shapes into just one layer. This can be useful for when you want to start doing more detailed adjustments to the shapes. When I create a rectangle, you'll notice in the middle of the toolbar there's an option now to edit the object. But let's say I want to edit this group of shapes here on which I performed the exclude operation. The option to do that isn't available, but once I've flattened the selection, the middle toolbar changes. So now there's an option to edit the object. When you click on Edit Object, instead of a blue bounding box, you'll see a lot of tiny white circles. When you click on them, you can move them around, and if you want to click on multiple ones, you can either hold Shift or drag your mouse over them and select multiple. You can make these sharp points curve by using the Bend tool. And when you click back to the Move tool, you'll notice it has some new points. These points allow you to adjust how the curve looks like. You can also decide if you want these points to mirror each other's angle or length. The paint bucket allows you to remove or add fill in the different sections of your shape. Another cool feature for manipulating shapes is the mask tool. So I'll be turning this rectangle into a mask. I'll be putting my weird new shape into the mask group. Everything that was outside of the rectangle is now invisible. And you can still adjust the mask by clicking on it here and moving it around like that.
Quack quack.
So let's try all the things that we have learned today. First, I want to create a mask to exclude the left side because typically stream schedules use that space for art. Now we have the mask, and just to show you how it works, I'll try to add a illustration in the back. Right here. And there we go. Next, I'll do a bit more adjustments to the schedule panels. Now I'm gonna add a star so that I can put a date on it. So first I'll duplicate this star because I want it to be yellow. I want a smaller yellow star inside. But I'll do a union on these two so that the small yellow star has like a background on it. And there we go. I'm just gonna duplicate this. Yay!
Quack quack.
You'll notice that as I was editing the streaming schedule, I had to keep copy-pasting these rectangles for all the changes that I made. This isn't really efficient, but there's a way to prevent repeating your work, and that's through components, which is one of my favorite features in Figma. You can think of components as like templates. So let's turn this guy into a component, and you can do that by clicking on this button here at the top, create component. So you'll know that it's a component now because it turns purple, the bounding box turns purple, and it's also purple when you're looking at the layers panel. So let's try to copy this component to the bottom, place it at the bottom like so. And now let's take a closer look at the layers panel. The main component has a filled in purple diamond icon, and the duplicate of it has a hollow purple diamond icon. And you'll notice that any change that I make to this main component will apply to the copy of it. So for example, I'll move this star to the right. Every component will imitate that. So no matter how many I make, I can keep making more and more of these guys. They will continue to reapply whatever change I make onto the main component. So this is really useful, especially when your work has multiple repeating assets, since you won't have to keep on copy pasting over and over again. So if you want to have a component and edit it individually, like let's say you just wanted to use the main component as a base, and then change it for something else, you can do that by detaching this instance. Right click, detach instance, or Control Alt B, and now it's like back to being a normal frame. It won't copy the changes I do to the main component since it's been detached from being a instance of the component.
Quack quack.
Another way to save time is by creating local styles. You can either do that by deselecting anything and declaring a local style on the design panel. You can declare a style for text, color, effect, or a grid, or you can go to whatever style you wanna imitate already. So I'll select my boolean group over here, and let's say I want to create a style out of the gradient fill that it currently has. I can do that by clicking on these 4 dots at the top, pressing the plus button, and that will allow me to create a new style. So let's say blue gradient. Now I can just keep using this gradient style wherever I want. So let's say, just for an example, I wanna change the star to be blue gradient. It will I can easily pick that out from the local styles. So let's make another local style out of this one. In the same way with components, if you want to make more edits to the local style, so you just want to use it as a base. So for example, make 2 shapes. I want both of them to have the yellow gradient, but this one I want to change it a bit. I can just simply detach the style and then change it however I want, like that. And the local style will still exist. You can change it back whenever you want.
Quack quack.
So another way to save time is by using frames and automatically lay out your objects. So just to demonstrate, let's move these guys randomly around. Let's pretend like they're scattered for a bit. And then I'm going to select them and right click and frame them, or Control Alt G. So now they're in a frame, and you'll notice in the design panel there's a auto layout button here. You can press that and now they automatically lay out. So these drop down buttons allow you to decide if the frame's width and height will adjust depending on its content. So for example, I want it to be fixed. even if I add more objects here, like let's say I get a square, I drag it into my frame, so you'll notice that no matter what I'm doing to the square, it's staying the same height. Otherwise, you can make it hug the contents. Frame size will adjust relative to whatever's inside it, and that works also for the horizontal resizing. You can decide if the objects will lay out vertically, so right now I have them on vertical layout. I can also do horizontal layout, so they're all arranged horizontally now, or I can make them wrap relative to the frame size. So let's say that I'll adjust the horizontal resizing, I'll make it fixed, and that way like the shapes will wrap relative to the width of the frame. You can also decide like what alignment they'll have. Like right now, let me make it fixed again. Right now they're aligned in the middle. You can do it like top left, top right, like center, etc. This is also where you can adjust the vertical gaps and the padding.
Quack quack.
So let's try what we learned. I think I'm missing one more shape here. I'll add it to my frame. I'll lower the vertical spacing. And since all these panels are instances of my main component, all I have to do now is edit this main component and all the changes will apply there. So I'm gonna add a rectangle, rounded rectangle, which is where I can put the date. I'm gonna use my yellow local style. Actually, let me separate my local style, move it outside the frame. Now I can edit these texts individually. Nice! I'll add some time zone boxes too. Now I'm gonna add text inside. And there we go.
Quack quack.
So we're nearly done with our streaming schedule, but it's still missing a little something. When you look at other VTuber streaming schedules, you'll notice there are different versions depending on what's happening that day. You can do that with variations. So to create a variation, I'll start with my component, and I'll click on this diamond button at the top called add variant. This will duplicate the component, but let's try to adjust it a little bit. You'll notice that when you click on one of the variants, there's a new field over here called property. And what I can do is, on the drop down button, I can select the new variant that I just made. And it will take the properties now of the second variant.
Quack quack.
So let's try making components for different kinds of streams that can happen. So you can rename the variant by double clicking on the name, and then after the equal sign, add the new name. And now we have our 4 variants. So let's try to see them at work. And there we have our updated streaming panels. Now you can customize them depending on what's going on that day.
Quack quack.
And that's the end of our advanced Figma features tutorial. I'll just add a bit more details to this and make it free to use for everyone.
quack quack
And that's it for this video. If it helped you, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye!
quack quack